Yeah, it's the Lanxion with his burb love. So if you're a Lanxion fan, definitely get some of that bird love going in chat. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if Wulfy has a cool emote, but there is a cool Wulfy clan emote. Then definitely get on with that one too. So yeah, beginning intro, nothing too exciting. I remember hearing something about if you hold a button during the first text, it'll like auto scroll or something. Other than that, just pretty much mashing through. Poor uncle, gonna do his best. God bless his heart. He's not gonna get very far.
Poor guy. Alright, not a whole lot going on quite yet. So let's go ahead and talk about the runners a little bit. During the group phase, Wulfy put up a 129.15 as his best time during the groups, putting him at the 24th seed. Lanxion has a 131.45 best time in the groups, and he's seated at 41. So a little bit of RNG and just a little bit of game brutality, if you make the smallest mistakes, can make this a pretty close match. So pretty excited for this tonight.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. I remember last time I did a race, I think it was with Lanxion, and it was during the New Year's. It was on New Year's, and it was a lot of fun. But just in terms of the commentary, even for myself and with him, just seeing how far we've kind of come in terms of skill and PBs and whatnot. So it's definitely very fun. And both of them, play randomizer as well. That's mainly where I know Wulfy from. So it's kind of fun seeing a lot of people kind of go between the two, both improve from NMG, maybe check out Rando, and then people, from Rando, kind of re-getting back into NMG. Got a very nice sync so far. Yeah, this should be a really great race between these two. I guess something I kind of pick out is right at the beginning, of course, they left Link's house and they're kind of making their way through. And recently, I didn't know that you could actually throw bushes by pressing the B button, or the same button as the sword. So you can actually pick up the bush and not only time the bush well, but you could plink the input A and B together. Well, not together, but slightly offset from one another, and actually almost double tap the bush throw input. So tons of little tech right from the get-go, even just picking up a bush in terms of the run. Yeah, and definitely in terms of tech, Lanxion showing that definitely implementing the pumping technique, which I think most people are pretty familiar with it as of now. But yeah, just should be a very fun race between two.
Very nice ball and chain from Lanxion. A little bit of a hit from Wulfy, but he'll be fine. There's a little bit of a safety if you grab those spots, but 8 slashes is pretty fast.
Yeah, there's a couple of different strategies you can go through, but 8 slashes is the fastest strategy. It's not too much faster than some of the other ones, but it is the quickest. And in the speedrun, you definitely want to do the quickest if you are capable of it. Yeah, it's really a beautiful game. There are tons of different ways you can do the same room, just with a slightly modified strategy. I know there are some wonderful individuals that put out really good resources showing a bunch of rooms side by side to one another, just to kind of show how similar a lot of strategies are in terms of time, and then some of them only marginally better by even just mere frames. Unfortunately, these soldiers being a little bit rude to Lanxion. Wulfy gets through real clean though.
Alright, coming up into this to the sewers part. not a whole lot of small check in here, just a little bit of RNG and just a little bit and reacting to it. And you have limited vision since we're in the dark now with the lantern. Sometimes the snakes here let us just walk right through. Other times they aren't so nice.
No, exactly. Wulfy getting a nice RNG pattern there again, and Lanxion having a little bit of a rougher one. But this is how the speedrun goes. There are lots of little instances of RNG. It's nothing too major, but over a course of a run, they all do add up. So while Wulfy has been having some more favorable patterns here, it doesn't mean that he's going to get the same favorable ones later. There's definitely a big ebb and flow to RNG throughout the whole run, not only in terms of enemy patterns, but you know, different item drops and the like.
And case in point right there is that key red right there, kind of hit up into that little corner, just gives him the longest path possible to get back to the door.
Yeah, exactly. That right there. That, you know, just kind of balancing out the RNG a little bit. It's definitely not an equivalent trade. You know, there is, you know, it's no guarantee that the RNG will work out perfectly even. But in that case, it was definitely kind of making up for the past.
Got a 57 escape from Lanxion, pretty good time.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because, you know, when you watch a speedrun, you might never notice, but when they come into that room with the switches, they hold right out the door. It actually skips an entire text box. So they only get the one right before the switch. But it's those kind of little things that when you watch the speedrun, you might not be privy to. But when you play it, you learn it, and it really, you know, just the little things that go into the game. It's a surprisingly deep game.
You know, we see both runners. They pick up the safety with the most utilization on it. Getting that one extra heart doesn't seem like very much, but there's a lot of situations where that one heart just gives you that extra hit to survive, especially the later dungeons.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the bosses can do large amounts of damage, like Cold Stare doing 4. So if you have the extra heart, it might give you 5 hearts, and then if you do take a hit, you end up surviving that fight by 1 extra hit. So Snake Heart is almost, I think, universally considered probably the best safety in the game. Following that, probably something like the Mushroom or Powder. But yeah, just really good movement from both these two here. Even coming out of Sanctuary, making sure that they don't walk too low before they transition through the screen. Otherwise, they'll get a bad Green Soldier RNG pattern. Yeah, and it should be noted that while pumping overall in the speedrun does not save very much time at all, I do believe in this screen it saves close to 3 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. But overall, as a technique, it's... I'm sorry?
Yeah, so how the pumping works is we're trying to reset Link's movement oscillation. In most instances, he alternates between 2 pixels, 1 pixel frame. On the stairs, there's a few... In that cycle, there was 1 frame where you move 0 pixels, so it's especially important to pump on stairs. Another great place is, like back in the sewers, we were pumping over the water. That also has longer frames with less than 2 pixel movement.
Yeah, definitely on stairs, it's a much more, you know, applicable strategy. Later they'll get the boots, and the boots will nullify a lot of the need to pump to try and get those extra pixel boosts. Yeah, it looks like Lanxion is going to pick up the extra arrows, as is Wulfy. Arrow management is very big in this run. You know, again, there are some potential drops due to RNG, but they're never guaranteed. So there are some spots where the runners can kind of choose to go for the arrow drops should they want to, or forgo them. It really depends. It's up to their own individual discretion. But, you know, sometimes just going for the extra arrows is better safe than sorry, depending on how it goes. Probably better to have too many arrows than waste of time getting them than having too few and losing a lot of time not having them. Yeah.
What we just saw on Lanxion stream, coming up close soon on Wulfy said, is the most important skip in this dungeon. In this room, you're supposed to kill all the enemies in here. That's a few popos, a couple skeletons, and an Igor. But take some damage, use your iframes to get past those anti-fairies. You can just go straight to that button.
Exactly. It can be especially scary if it doesn't, if the runners end up not getting it very cleanly. There is a heart pot right below that they can use to refill to try it again. But if you mess it up, it can be a very big time loss. Even though it's the first dungeon in the game, it actually can be somewhat volatile. There are really easy ways to take damage, and then you do have to intentionally take damage. So, you know, it's not uncommon for runners to have difficulty in this dungeon, even though it is the first one. But both get through very well so far. Same health count, and they're right about to go to our boss here. Some very nice drops from Lanxion.
Yep, and that drop lets him not have to go back and grab another arrow pod right there. And save that. So it's like 2 seconds right there, 2 or 3 seconds.
Yeah, definitely. You want 18 arrows to go into this fight as a minimum, and more are preferred. Unfortunately, Wulfy not able to get that one little arrow drop. That's okay. He has enough for the fight, but he will be a little bit lower. Still, there are more arrow pods to be found coming up, so not the worst thing. The main thing is to have them for this fight. Yeah, both get through very well.
Unfortunately, with this green pendant, we know how long I have to take the slow way around everywhere, because our friend Sahasrala likes to give us some boots. He kind of outgrew them a little bit, so kind of gave them to Link, and it makes him run somehow.
Yeah, I think, you know, sometimes you get to a point in life where you no longer need to do the speedy zoop zoop, and so you just kind of chill in your hut, you know, patch your wall, and you know, get some shoes to the first person that goes and clears the local dungeon. Inside the hut, you can actually mash text with X because it will not open the map in that area. Text mashing is actually surprisingly important in the game too. There are times where you want to hit certain buttons to advance the text, and other times where you do not. So in this case, because they're not in a dungeon or on the overworld, in Sahasrala's hut, you can press the X button as part of text mashing. All the face buttons work, and on the very last text box, you can actually use the shoulder buttons to cancel a text. So later when they get to the old man in Death Mountain, they'll be able to close, they'll make great use of that so they don't actually buffer dash input.
Alright, both are running their way into the library so they can get themselves a book. Let's open up desert. Lets them see some things. Both runners are trying to do coming out of the library. It's called a spin speed. If you release if you tap dash 1 frame after you release a spin, it puts you in this weird glitch state that whenever you walk off stairs, it lets you walk around with free movement as if you were running the entire time.
Yeah, it basically stores the dashing momentum, which is very useful, obviously. It'll be featured in some various locations here. Yeah, otherwise when they're dashing, they want to maximize the distance at which they're dashing, because when you dash you move at 4 pixels a frame. When you walk, you tend to oscillate to an approximate 1.5 pixels a frame. So the boots definitely are very good in terms of that, and you want to maximize the amount of time that you're charging up for the boots. So you'll see some very strong cardinal movements from them. And the entire game is built on a grid system, so just very clean tile-esque, you know, dash movements from them. Lanxion having a very nice dash there right before the desert, as an example. Yeah, movement is very important in this run. Yeah, it's still very close between both runners.
Yeah, not a whole lot going through this dungeon. They're gonna make use of trying to pick up every arrow pod on there. We have another boss, arrow intense boss coming up. But right now we're just grabbing some keys so we can get ourselves some gloves so we can pick up some rocks and toss them at things.
Yeah, exactly. This dungeon is very convenient for arrow refills, in particular for the fact that Lamola, the 3 of them each take 4 arrows in order to kill, for a total of 12 And even then, this is barring any missed 2 arrows. So this is a really great dungeon to restock your arrow count, not only for the boss, but hopefully get a few extra for, you know, the future endeavors. Yeah, and even despite everything, both runners very close. Big thing to this game is being able to adapt and react to a lot of situations. You know, there might be a proper or fast way to do something, but sometimes you may need to forgo it just based on the situation and even your own state as a player. It's a very volatile run, and, you know, trying to have too much bravado going into the run, you know, can definitely cost runners. Especially in a tournament setting where there's a lot of pressure, it's really good to be conscientious of your own emotional state and even to sometimes take concessions, like maybe an extra safety. But so far, both these runners presenting very well and doing a good job.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think this is the first instance of a key dash into the door in the game, if I'm not mistaken. Key dash, yep. I think you need to be aligned at a multiple of 4 pixels away from the door, in tandem with how the boots move. So oftentimes you'll see runners kind of nudge or find different ways to set up the key dash. Lanxion there dashing against the torch, and we'll see Wulfy following suit. So normally when you dash, you want to have very clean dashes. You don't want to nudge objects, but in the case of a key dash, you actually want to do that, if only for the sake of setting up a key dash. Yeah, and Wulfy here grabbing some extra arrows, which is very smart. Those are really good arrows to grab. They're very convenient, and you want to have as many arrows as you can. So grabbing those 5, despite having missed the 5 earlier, which was a little unfortunate, he's definitely made that up. And again, just very good awareness of the situation.
So, Landmo was easily one of the toughest bosses to get down consistently. So they're always starting in the same 3 spots at the start of the fight. Then after that, how long they hop, how far away they hop, and where they spawn each after that is completely random. And they're trying to remain somewhat close to them so they can try to get multiple arrows, because you cannot shoot your next arrow until the arrow before that hits something, whether it's a wall or an enemy.
Yeah, whiffing an arrow is really unfortunate, because, like you just said, you cannot have an extra projectile on screen. In the case of the arrows, at least. It's not true for the fire rod, but in this fight, missing an arrow is no bueno. Yeah, you see both runners just dashing through, coming up to our first instance of fake flippers. Oh, unfortunately, Lanxion just barely missing it, but it looked really good. You can use that bush to try and line up some very solid, consistent movement to try and get it. You basically want to be 1 pixel away from the transition, and you're able, when you hop into the water for that 1 frame, it kind of tricks the game. I don't remember how it works exactly in terms of the actual mechanics.
So it's basically like, okay, I'm in the water, then you transition screens, the game's like, oh, I guess you were swimming when you came here, so I'll let you keep swimming. This glitch does come with a huge risk. You gotta make sure you do not get hit at all. Since the last time you were on land is on a different screen, the game's going to scroll for quite a bit before dropping you somewhere. Then if you try to move after that, you'll be stuck in an infinite scroll, and you won't be able to save and quit, you won't be able to do anything. This category is no major glitches, and then at the end of it, it's no save and quit. If you get hit on that fake flippers, is the only time we allow a save and quit in this race for the tournament's sake, because it's a 19-minute loss if you have to restart from the beginning there.
Yeah, it's alright, substantial time loss, regardless, but it would basically be your entire race, and you know, that kind of kills the spirit of the race itself, I think. But yeah, it stores a state from before. It detects that you were, you know, technically in water, but a lot of fun with that sort of thing. And I think Lanxion got the quick warp. Yeah, basically, if you align the camera on a certain X position, you can get something called a quick warp. And I think it's approximately 30 frames faster.
That's about right.
Yeah. But yeah, so you'll see the runners when they enter a portal. It might look like they're entering it kind of funny, but they're doing it intentionally. It's to facilitate a quick warp.
Yep, and then we'll get to see some excellent use of the mirror in this dungeon, and especially in Palace of Darkness later on, just to save a ton of time in backtracking.
Yeah, absolutely. A very handy tool. Even in the randomizer, it's very handy. But in NMG, it lets you go to the very beginning of the dungeon, and it resets the entire dungeon too, which in some ways can be a double-edged sword. If you're to, for some reason, fall in Hera, for example, and use the mirror, the hard hat beetle room that you go through would also reset. But so would also all the item drops in the dungeon under pots too. So if you end up needing an extra bomb or something, you know, that's one place where it become applicable. But obviously we wouldn't want our runners to fall in any capacity. But it definitely has interesting property. See frequent use of it in here. And in House of Darkness upcoming, it's another big dungeon where you'll see a lot of use of it. This beetle room. A lot of different strategies you can do for this room. Like the one Wulfy did there, that was really cool.
That was a nice one.
The first time I ever saw someone do that was Joe D'Amelio at our run from years ago. I might be mistaken, but it's definitely an older strategy. And again, that's really the beauty of this game. There are many solutions, but there isn't necessarily an answer. There are many ways to do something, but it's really up to the player and their implementation that really makes them shine.
Really nice bomb jumps from both runners right there. Using a bomb and taking a little bit of damage, as long as you're lined up properly, you'll be able to get boosted over a gap. You can either be 2 pixels away or 1 pixel away, and you don't need to do anything extra. But if you bonk against a wall right before the bomb goes off, that changes your window to 6 pixels, so it makes it a fairly consistent strategy.
Yeah, definitely. And here we have everyone's favorite Moldorm fight. There are some still methods for taking out Moldorm, but it's still probably one of most runners' least favorite fights. It can eat up some time, and you know, it can just be a little bit haphazardous in some ways, but both runners get through very well, of course. And with that, we have all 3 pennants, so time for our Master Sword. And on the way, probably some rupee routing. But yeah, in the future, we're going to need some rupees in order to get into the Palace of Darkness. So until now, runners have been paying attention to their arrow count, but money count is also very important too. You need 100 to enter pod, but you also need 10 as a fee to pay Kiki in order to get in. So there are different ways in order to get the rupees, and the common one that you'll see now is with tree pulls. That tree pull is a tier 1 pull giving 5 rupees right there. But later they will try to manipulate the tree pull to potentially get 80 rupees in a single pull. They'll all be 20 red ones.
Yep, and then how that works is between the first pull is to reset the count. Then after that, they want to kill 4 enemies, and they have to make sure they die on screen. If they transition a little bit too early, it's not going to count towards that. But if you get 4 enemies and you don't kill 4 enemies and you don't get hit at all, your next pull becomes the 4 red rupees.
Yeah, definitely handy to be aware of. There are some backup strategies, and there is actually even another tree that you can pull at Hyrule itself as backup too. But ideally, they'll end up getting the tree within Lost Woods.
Yep, and then when Lanxion gets his pull, he's going to have more than enough rupees to make it in. Wulfy, he's going to be 5 short, but there's an easy 5 rupee pot in the middle of Hyrule Castle that he's going to grab along the way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there are 2 pots in that circle pot room that will together give 6 rupees. So as long as you know how many rupees are going in before that, you can definitely compensate. And there are little areas in which you can do that as well. And yeah, you see Lanxion here. He slashes the bird right there to increase his count as Wulfy mirrors himself. Wulfy opting to grab the mushroom here, which I think is really smart. In tournament, you know, again, with nerves and everything, there can be some issues. And with the mushroom, you could turn it in.
And then Wulfy missed one of his kills right there, so he got 3 green rupees, or 4 green rupees instead. So he's gonna have to reset that up along the way to Hyrule Castle. Not too big a deal.
Yeah, so again, that's unfortunate, but the tree is now reset, so with that green soldier, he now has 1 kill, and there is a pull tree right in front of Hyrule, so he will be able to kill the enemies here and get the money. And as a last resort, you could mirror into Hoshula's hut in the Dark World, but that's not preferred. So yeah, you can see him leading the 2 soldiers, and indeed, he should now have the pull. And that is the color we are looking for. But yeah, just to kind of finish the thought, Wulfy grabbed the mushroom. There is a glitch that you can do called fake powder to use the mushroom, or you can trade in to get the real mushroom. But the fake powder glitch, just to get out of the way real quick, is you have to drain all your magic, have a Can of Samaria, and when you try to activate the Can of Samaria, on the next frame, you switch over to the mushroom, and the game kind of reads it, and like it messes with value, and it gives a powder. And so runners can use that in order to treat it like it's powder.
Okay, in the room that Wulfy's in, both runners tried to set up, we call it prize pack manipulation. Those 2 particular guards are there part of the only prize pack that has a fairy drop on it. It's the second one in a series of 8. Lanxion got a fairy drop in that one. They had a little bit of issue trying to get the dash off. If you kill an enemy with the dash, they will never drop an item. So, yeah.
Yeah, it does an advanced prize pack, and that's very handy. Nice Q dash from Lanxion there. Blue guard being a little difficult for Wulfy here. It's unfortunate. And he gets his key, that's good. And yeah, Lanxion getting the 6 rupees in the circle pot, but he is more than fine for money, and Wulfy will be too. Yeah, nice double spin from Wulfy there. He now has his rupees, got 5 more arrows. And it's pretty smooth sailing from here. On to the Dark World very shortly. Lanxion heading into the Aghanim fight. And Aghanim works on a cycle. He is effectively a glorified cutscene, but there are minor techniques you can use in order to speed up the fight. But to lay it out, the first shot Aghanim does will always be a yellow projectile, a yellow orb that you can reflect back at him. But for the next 3 attacks is a 50-50 in whether he'll shoot a reflectable yellow orb or he'll shoot some blue balls. And those can eat up a lot of time depending on how many there are. The average is 3, but on the 5th cycle, like when he got there, and he expresses his angst with some slashes. But the 5th cycle, in multiples of 5, will always be a lightning phase, and there's nothing you can do with it. So ideally, the runners would be able to get all their damage on Aghanim before he goes to a second lightning phase. But that is up to RNG to decide.
Yep, and then Lanxion's already at 3, so he's going to get an extra lightning cycle already.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate, but if there's no more than 3, then that would be average. And really, can't really hope for more than that, but we are at 4 now. And
You can get
the blue ball too.
You can get up to 15 as long as you don't miss any energy balls. The maximum we'll see is 15, which is incredibly rare. Rarer than pretty much the rest of the possible RNGs.
Yeah,
Only like 2 people have ever gotten it and recorded it or something like that. I don't know.
I know when Mr. Scrivo has gotten it twice, which it's basically like being struck by lightning. So it's pretty.
Blue balls aren't playing very nice for Wulfy either.
No, and Lanxion is getting so many. I've actually lost count, but this could actually be enough to pull Wulfy ahead depending on his RNG, and it does seem to be more favorable. Which is great for him, but in terms of a race, it's not even so much that many blue balls are a bad thing, but between racers, you want to see them have a similar count, because of course, for the race here, we're really hoping to have a good race. And yeah, Wulfy manages to pull ahead based on the RNG. Lanxion's just finished and he's given some extra slashes for good reason, but either way, both runners are pretty close together, and there's still a lot of race left.
Yep, these past 30 minutes, they're nothing but warm-up. Coming up, we have an incredibly tough dungeon. It is basically a gatekeeper for this entire run, in terms of skill and execution.
Yeah, definitely. Eastern Palace is kind of a tricky dungeon, but it's still a little bit more tame. Palace of Darkness, very volatile. Not only are there some very, difficult techniques within it, but you need to watch your health count in term, just to have it, to facilitate some good speed tech. And then the Helmasaur fight too can also be very volatile as a fight. So this is kind of like your introduction into the real latter portion of the speedrun. I cannot talk right now. But yeah, coming up here, we'll see something, we'll see a Kiki skip type technique where the racers will go up to the door of Pod and then they'll kind of do a little bit of a shimmy. The reason is because Kiki is very slow to walk, and so by doing this, he gets closer to the door, doesn't walk as far, and they get in much quicker.
Not a whole lot going on in the first part of the dungeon. Pod is really bomb heavy in terms of what's underneath pots, and we're gonna be mirroring a lot of times, walking right by next to the bomb pots. This is basically going to fund our bomb count for the entire run.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of where Desert was where you got a lot of arrows. Palace of Darkness is where you get a lot of bombs, which is kind of nice. It's, a good little stock up for the rest of the run. But yeah, absolutely putting the mirror to very good use. And it's also very fortunate that you get bombs, because they do see some frequent use within the dungeon. Not only for this bombable floor here, but there is a trick coming up called the hammer jump, or hammer jump. And you need 2 bombs in order to achieve it. And it's also a very difficult trick, because not only do you have to have 2 Y-coordinate pixel-perfect alignments, but there is a bridge falling, and so you need to do them both very quickly.
Yeah, pixel perfect. That's nothing. They'll be utilizing some pause buffering. And looking for some cues just so they know they're on the right pixel. Fortunately, the X pixel position is pretty lenient.
Yeah, part of the menu routing is that you actually have to switch to a different item here anyway. So you get 2 free buffers, and Wulfy does that very good, very cleanly. Lanxion, quite impressive from both. Yeah, and so now that we have the hammer, the main dungeon item, and a key, we're able to go to Helma's Door. And so the nice thing right before Helma's Door is that you can get a health refill here, and the health refill, having the sword beam, will facilitate a speed tech coming up. But also, just because the boss fight itself can be dangerous, having that extra health certainly doesn't hurt.
And that's why we want the sword beams right there. Just makes it so you don't have to switch to either boomerang or bow just to do that, because you still need that hammer.
Yeah, you still want the hammer out, so having the sword beam saves you menu. And then a good thing to do is that when you hammer, the knockback from the turtle can slow you down a few frames. So when you hammer, it's really good to try and not hammer directly onto the turtle. And then after, you have that very fun turtle room where you can move in a specific way and end up taking all the turtles out at the same time. But moving into the Helma's Door fight here, you need one hit to kind of activate the mask portion of the fight, but then you need 6 hits for each portion. In a sense, the halfway point is when the crack will open. So in total, you need 17 hits in order to get the mask off.
Yep, and then you saw that both herons had their sword out the entire time. It's a dual purpose right there. One, whenever he's charging you with that sword, allows Link to get pushed back away from him. And also, there's some funky mechanics with the hammer. When you have the sword, it kind of extends out a little bit, just so you don't have to be as close in order to do damage to Helma's Door. And
yeah, it kind of adopts the hitbox of it. It's pretty interesting looking at the hitboxes, but yeah, both get through very well. So that is one crystal dungeon down, and next one will be Thieves Town, but first we have to make our way there and do a couple of errands on the way. Yeah, and it's cutscenes like these that really make the Japanese text nicer. Of course, we plan the Japanese 1.0 version in order to facilitate certain, different techniques and glitches, minor glitches that we use.
We also have one coming up pretty soon.
Crystal cutscene. Pardon?
We also have a glitch coming up soon.
Yeah.
Really fun one.
No, it is Japanese 1.0 exclusive.
So coming up on Wulfy's screen, he's going to do what's called a hammer dash. You want to press Y and A on the same frame, and it just lets Link run around with his hammer out the entire time, and he doesn't have to swing it down to knock down these pegs at all. Fantastic tech.
Yeah, it's a very fun technique too. There's something cathartic about it, trying to use it. Yeah, Wulfy here, talking to the STEM kid. Gonna get the shovel, and the shovel will lead to the flute. So part of the 80% routing is routing the flute activation on their way to Thieves Town.
First try dig.
First try dig. But yeah, still not too much separating these runners. Of course, Aghanim was a big equalizer, but, still very, very close.
Yep, very important spin speed and some tighter movement so you can get around that red guard. Lovingly known as Usain Bolt to us. As long as you manipulate him right, it'll be fine. And looking at Wulfy's position, I think he's probably going to opt for either flake powder route, or if he decides to get real powder, he's probably going to grab it a little bit later.
Yeah, normally this is the first instance in which you could go and get powder, but from my understanding, I think Wulfy will probably be sticking with normal powder. It's a little bit of a time loss to go to powder, but the fake powder is very quick, and there's no guarantee that he'll even necessarily need it. And Chris Lanxion did not even bother grabbing the mushroom, so he has no option in regard to that, but it's good to see that he's feeling confident in his own ability. Oh, unfortunately, you know, it's good that he's conscientious of the apples there, but unfortunately taking a small hit and trying to get them, as Wulfy gets 2 fairies.
Double fairy, double lag. So, Thieves Down, it's a little bit of a maze in this front little part right here, but we know where Big Key is, and know the best way to get there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you'll see just now on Lanxion's screen, but Wulfy did it too. When you open the door to Thieves Town, you don't grab it square on. You grab it a little off to the side, and that's so that, you know, from the rollback of opening the door, you kind of, you know, nudge against the wall there a little bit, and it means there's less distance for you to travel. Unfortunately, Lanxion taking a hit here. Thieves Town isn't too scary for the most part, but there are some rooms with some RNG that can definitely throw you for a loop.
And with these enemies, they do start to hit quite hard now. We're in Dungeon 4 now. The game wants us to go to Dungeon 2. But we really want to get the item in here so we can kind of upgrade our weapon a little bit.
Yeah, thankfully the boss's dungeon, the damage of the sword is irrelevant. It is a 3-phase fight that requires 3 hits for each phase, and the damage of the weapon does not factor into it. So getting out sooner than later isn't too bad, but yeah, it's still a very dangerous dungeon, as you can see here.
This hellway for Lanxion, oh my gosh. Just not... There was out to get him, one more hit, oh no.
Yeah,
there are some free hearts he can grab along the way, so he might take it a little bit slower just to make sure he gets those, try to avoid some hits along the way, or avoid getting hit period along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, these locust, grasshopper, goblin-ish type things, they do a lot of damage. They're not very fun. But he does get through. Still lots of scariness for him though, but if he can manage to get to the prison, he will find himself with some hearts.
Meanwhile, Wulfy finds himself a maiden, going to take her on a little bit of a tour, then try to leave.
Yep, we have been looking for her, so we have rescued her. Everything is all good. We got some new gloves. Life is great. Now to go find that stinking boss. Go beat him up. And yeah, Lanxion successfully makes it through. The blind fight, the orbs from the fight can do 1 heart of damage, and the head does 2. So going into the fight, if you're a little bit worried, you'd probably want an odd number of health, or 2.5 hearts. And there is that heart refill right before, but Lanxion doing good now, in a very good position.
Unfortunately with blind is it's a pretty scripted fight. The RNG is basically based on your own movement and what you do during the fight. So the absolute most consistent fight you'll see outside of Armos.
Yeah, definitely. It's the kind of fight that as a new player or a casual player, it seems very intimidating, but then as a learned one, it's much more straightforward. So it turns out that that nice lady following us is actually not very nice. It's the boss of dungeon, but we now have the real one. Ooh.
Still made it out fine.
Yeah. Thankfully, with all the health, he was able to have a buffer. Still a very solid fight. Yeah, so now that the fight is over, we're time to get some money to get not only sword upgrade, but for later when we need the flippers. And it's very convenient that the game gives us some two instances of 300 rupees here.
Yep, that hut right there is reason number 2 why we grabbed that boomerang. Not only to get some easier grab strats, but if we don't grab that blue boomerang earlier in the game, that actually becomes a red boomerang right there. So getting boomerang gives us money, apparently.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of a similar thing. Like, if you get the lantern early at the beginning of the game, what you find in the chest changes. But here we return Papa Smithy, Breadsmith, and he'll give us our tempered sword. And there is our carrot stick.
Yep, definitely required for a healthy run.
Yeah, it's pretty astounding in terms of damage, just how much better the swords are. The charge spin of a fighter sword is equivalent to the slash of a master, and then the charge of a master is equivalent to the slash of a temper. So having the tempered sword, especially this early, it plays a massive role into the run. And was that a fence dash from Wulfy?
It looked like it. I saw that nudge.
Ooh, it looked like Lanxion got, but then you didn't believe. Although, it's hard to say.
Yeah, trying to do the finish test like coming right off that screen. You have one frame of movement that you can do and still get that dash without bonking.
Yeah, it's a little bit precise, but not too bad. But it's certainly not a good thing to bonk. Yeah, both runners going to be in Skullwoods here. Skullwoods is a very volatile dungeon. It's kind of spread out. Lanxion getting a fairy that he doesn't really need there.
Yep, Skullwoods is actually a pretty big dungeon, but we don't need a big key for the boss door, but we need it to get our fire rod. But we only touch like a quarter of the dungeon.
Yeah, the dungeon itself is a giant troll. Not only does it have some really frustrating enemies that can do a lot of damage, but a lot of the rooms of the dungeon itself are just traps and tricks. So, not necessarily the most fun, but it's also a short one. And there are some really good speed tech within it too. Yeah, Wulfy kind of cancelling away from the spike trap there. You don't actually have to tap down at all. You'll clear the spike trap. So sometimes people will use that instance to menu to the fire rod so they don't bonk into the wall. Again, just kind of part of the neatness of each individual runner, how they implement different tricks and even just menu buffers. You know, some players might feel more confident in a certain trick, and so they'll forgo menuing in a certain spot. Whereas others will want the extra buffer. Yeah, like Lanxion right here doing that.
So a pretty cool thing with those spikes, like if you hit an enemy into the spikes, it does gold sword damage. It's really nice right there, so that mummy only takes 2 slashes to die. Kind of sucks on Mothlia though. They programmed him so that the spikes do 0 damage, and if you hit Mothlia into the spikes too soon after you hit him with the sword, it will actually cancel the damage you just did. But
Yeah,
Wulfy had a incredibly fast fight.
Yeah, it's like a class for damage. Yeah, it was a very good fight, but Mothula, you know, not necessarily the hardest boss, or wouldn't be the hardest boss, but the patterns from Mothula can be very unforgiving. Yeah, so Lanxion gets through. Something that should be noted is that the damage of a poke is less than that of a slash, but if you're dashing, it is equivalent to a slash. So one thing you can do in the fight is you can hold out your sword and actually dash buffer in order to try and maximize some hits into the moth, should the moth be in the corner or upper portion of the screen. But it's also just play a role later in the run too. Notable examples are the boss of Cold Stare, but also an Argus if they go for the 0 cycle strategy.
But first, we need to go on another shopping trip really fast. Everything in NMG, it just how the route works, how the items are laid out, just fits together so perfectly.
Yeah, the game itself is really poetic in a sense, just in terms of design, the depth, and just the way everything flows together. I think not only is it a very endearing game to people, but just how it was crafted itself has really made it quite interesting. And all these years later, so many people coming together, you know, to play it and learn it, and even those that never played it as children. It's just a very, you know, interesting and endearing game. Yeah, I'm going to see Wulfy here at the catfish or quick fish bonking against the wall in order to set up another quick warp. And the quick warp is based on your X coordinate, so bonking into the wall sets it up perfectly.
Which also sets us up perfectly just to go ahead and grab the flippers while we're here.
Yep, it's again, it just works out very well. We need Quake, but we also need the flippers, so why not pair them together?
And then coincidentally, there's a whirlpool right here that just takes us right to Ice Palace too.
Yep. Yeah, definitely a lot of thinkums went into the game and into the route. Yeah, Zora is selling the finger webs. We immediately put them to use by going straight to Ice Palace. It should be noted that there are a couple of different routes a person could take in terms of dungeon order. There is flexibility, but there are some time differences between them all.
Yep, everything is basically routed on, well, it's right here, let's do this now. So that puts us into some pretty dangerous dungeons early on. Ice Palace, we do skip a huge chunk on it. We don't pick up a single key in that dungeon. Well, we pick up one key at the very beginning, then not a single thing after that.
Yeah, that's correct. I think it's normally considered to be Dungeon 5, but already here we're doing it about the midway point in terms of Dark World dungeons. This is also the dungeon in which you get the vanilla blue mail. So from this point especially, enemies and areas take a huge step up in terms of difficulty, because the game expects you to have more hearts and, of course, more health from the mail.
Yep, and unfortunately, if you wanted to get that blue mail, this dungeon is designed to be one giant puzzle, one giant maze. In order to get everything in it the intended way, you have to make 2 passes through the entire dungeon, because of how it's pieced together.
Yeah, it's just how much you skip in terms of the dungeon is actually quite phenomenal. Upcoming, they're going to be doing a bomb jump that is referred to as Ice Palace Bomb Jump. There are quite a few ways to set up the bomb jump, but it is a single trick that allows so much of the dungeon to be skipped because they get to jump over some pegs.
Yep, this crystal switch right here is the very last one that you'll see until the floor above Cold Stare.
Yeah. And it should be noted that when you hold left coming out of the doorway, you'll actually be 1 pixel away from the wall, and that is ideal for setting up a hammer dash after the bomb jump. But if you happen to fall in the hole and you hold left, you'll actually be flush against the wall. You will not be 1 pixel away. So especially for new runners, that's probably something that will trip people up because they might be used to having their set of motions but then not realize. But if you delay your movement by at least 1 frame, you will then again be 1 pixel away from the wall.
I've been correct, I forgot one of those jelly dropped a key as well, but we don't open up a single chest.
Yeah. Wulfy having a very nice lonely fire bar room there. Yeah, and Lanxion getting his hammer dash.
Great job from both runners. As Wulfy drops down to his Cold Stare fight. It's very important in this dungeon that you don't use any more fire rod shots than necessary. You can use fire rod twice and still have enough magic for this fight. But you need full bar magic to destroy Cold Stare's shell. And that's if you don't grab the half magic. And there goes Cold Stare.
Yeah, definitely. If you miss a shot, that is a very bad time for you. Quite literally, because it will be a big time loss in having to reset the dungeon. Wulfy putting the poke dash to use there as well, and taking a Cold Stare incredibly quickly. Yeah, Lanxion shortly to follow here. Yeah, still very close between the 2 runners. Honestly, it makes me really curious how much time difference there was between the Aghanim fight and to kind of pair that with how they would be currently if that was equalized.
If I remember correctly, there was about a 10-second difference upon entering. Actually, no, there's a little bit more because Wulfy did have to go back and do the second tree pull, or the extra tree pull.
I've never seen that before. Wulfy hopping into the water, having a little swim for the bird.
Alright, so after all these tough dungeons, we finally decided to go ahead and hop into Dungeon 2. So we have a lot more hearts than the game had intended. So for the most part, death's not too big of a worry, unless a lot of things go wrong. But there's just a lot of small things that kind of slow you down sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. This is considered dungeon number 2 in the run, and so it's not really health that we fear, but time loss. This dungeon has a very sneaky way of eating up a lot of your time. There's lots of awkward enemies, lots of little different RNGs, and of course lots of little, spade techniques to be aware of. So it's the type of dungeon where it can either go really good or just really not good. But nice quick work from Wulfy before heading into the dungeon here. Yeah, you'll see on Lanxion's side, he also goes for the quick warp, and killing that Octorok reduces the amount of lag that you'll get going into this next screen. And even within Swamp House 2, killing those red skeletons, especially in this room that Wulfy's coming up here, would make the water in the room fill up a little bit quicker, but that's only if the red skeleton happens to get in your way. Trying to make a special trip in order to take out the red skeleton probably isn't worth it. If it is convenient to kill him, though, it might be. Yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, this room that Wulfy is heading into, when you take out these enemies, it helps to make the room above fill faster with the water. This dungeon is also a very nice restock dungeon as well. There's a little room near the end where you can get, you know, a bomb and some arrows. And there's also the bomb near the beginning that you can opt for. But both runners having some healthy counts at the moment.
Yep, they just need exactly 2 bombs for the next little segment. And then mainly need 8 arrows for later on. So, healthy counts on both. Swamp Palace, it's one of those dungeons where you have to go very deep into the dungeon, then you gotta backtrack, and so you can move on.
Yeah, definitely lots of back and forth. It's kind of similar to Ice in that way, except Ice is a bit more of a large roundabout. And Wulfy dodging that fireball. It can be a little bit of a jerk. If you move in a certain manner, it should never hit you, but it can be really close. Yes, coming up, Wulfy is about to get the hook shot. You'll notice that he aligned along the statue, and that's so that when he gets the hook shot and moves diagonally from there, he's able to be perfectly aligned in order to hook shot that pot. Just a tiny little speed technique. And then coming here, if you do a item dash with a hook shot, a hook dash, it'll allow you to pick up the pot much more easily here when you're trying to reveal a switch, which Wulfy did do.
Yep, and then that puts you in the same state as doing a spin speed. So, especially when they start going up Death Mountain again in a little bit, they're gonna opt to try to have the hook shot out as much as possible within reason, and then that just gives them a really quick way to get the spin speed again. Puts Link in that same state.
Yeah, and it's really easy to notice too, because you'll see Link kind of do this cute little putter when he's in this state. So if you're wondering why he's moving kind of funny, or like he has to go to the washroom, that's the reason. He is currently in that glitch state.
Yep, that's totally canon right there.
Yeah, is definitely canon. I mean, there's water everywhere, right?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, Wulfy heading into this fight here. So it looks like he's not opting for the 0 cycle fight, and you know, it makes sense. Argus is actually probably one of the harder fights of the entire game. It's not so much that the fight itself is difficult, but from a speed perspective, it is very difficult to get the 0 cycle. And if you fail it, it's not much different than just having not bothered for the strategy at all. But we may see the attempt from Lanxion here.
Yes,
it kind of follows a similar premise with the poke, in which you hold out the sword and then you hit, you kind of do a hook dash at the same time. And then from there you can subsequently tap the Y button in a very specific manner in order to just poke all the putts very quickly.
Yep, and then you just have frames of error on that one, and some of it is RNG dependent. Argus he's going to make 3 movements, and then he's going to spin all those puffs around. How far he moves each time is RNG though.
Yeah, so a lot of the strategy to doing that is also to clear out all the posts that would be at the bottom that would be threatening to you. There is a little bit of margin of error, but not much. And yeah, Lanxion does not opt for it either, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so after we hear the life story of the main, we are now on our way and going to do some errands once more. Kind of like life in general, you can't really put too much on your plate at the same time, so we kind of spread out all the things we do. So Wulfy here will be heading to Death Mountain in order to activate one of the tablets to get an Ether Medallion, which is directly needed in order to enter Misery Mire. The big problem with this, though, is that you want to make sure that you do not take any damage. There is one screen at the beginning of Mire, which you can do much quicker if you have full health. And in general, health is always important to maintain. And unfortunately, he takes a hit there. Yep, it's really hard to do because of the RNG of Death Mountain, but...
And it's especially going to be more important for Lanxion to not take any hits, since he opted to not grab that mushroom. Misery Mire, there's a lot of intentional damage, and a lot of unintentional damage does way too much damage to you.
Yeah, exactly. Taking a hit is very dangerous. Vitreous in the dungeon itself isn't too bad, but there isn't a large margin of error. And most importantly, the less, the more damage you do take, the slower it gets, and the death is incredibly costly. Yeah, so we see Wulfy here, now going to pick up the Ice Rod, because we will need the Ice Rod in order to get into Turtle Rock. This rock right here, if you are missing a bomb you can pick up, is a 50-50 chance of having a bomb, so that too is another good spot to have a backup. Because within Mire we will need one bomb.
Lanxion showing off. For whatever reason, if you have your sword out, then you do a hook dash. And then you're on top of stairs. You just kind of fly up the stairs somehow. Pretty fun tech.
Yeah, it's a very fun speed technique. It actually does save quite a bit of time there. The other time that you would see it is entering Ganon Tower. And of course you do see it really briefly on the mountain too, but that ladder right there is probably the most prominent location for it. So Lanxion's still having full health here. This is really good for him because he'll have sword beams going into Mire. Wulfy a few hearts to him, but it's okay. He does have that mushroom too, should he want to heal before the Vitreous fight, but the main thing in having full health here is for this room that he's about to go into.
Yep, kind of curious if Wulfy's going to do the fake power, if he's going to set up for it by trying to drain out right after the torch is coming up, or if he's just going to save it for towards the end. He used up a little bit more fire rush shots than he wants to, so he'll have to get that full magic right before the torches then.
Yeah, I imagine he'll probably wait until the end because there are so many very convenient locations before the end. And you do have to damage boost through the spikes, so you would maximize the amount of health and save time at the end refill screen if you get it earlier than later. But we'll have to see. There are some very convenient locations regardless throughout the dungeon. So we'll see Lanxion here shortly heading into Mire 2. Yeah, and so far doing a good job. The main thing is the whiz robes. You want to take out the whiz robes before they disappear. So having the fire rod in conjunction with the sword beam, you're able to take out that room incredibly quickly. From here on out, both players will be taking some intentional damage, so having the full health is not as vital, but I still do want to maintain a healthy health count, especially for the boss, because again, they will be using damage boosting for things.
Yeah, the minimum health you can do optimal strat on the boss is 5 hearts. But of course, I'd like to make sure they have a little bit more, because if they do take an unintentional hit in the boss, that's 4 hearts of damage right there.
Yeah, it's really just a speed thing. You can do the fight with, many different types of heart count, but the lower it is, the more your speed gets potentially affected. Yeah, and Wulfy quickly coming up to that spike damage room right here. Yeah, and doing a good job. Dashing in from the previous room gets rid of the red skeleton. Using the spikes, getting through, and then dashing up again helps take care of that red skeleton. So now he has more than enough health for the boss. 7 is a really good number to have going into it, so if he's not scared at all, then he's more than fun for the fight. Yeah, and here we have kind of a fun room. There are a few ways to do it, but regardless, you have to wait for the beam from the smarter block to travel upwards. Ooh, unfortunately, Wulfy just getting clipped there. He still has 7 hearts though, so his count is still good. But like you were saying, getting hit by Vitreous, it's not very fun. Those eyeballs do insane damage. This is supposed to be Dungeon 6 in terms of the game.
Yep, and then if Lanxion uses up his second bomb in that dark room that Wulfy used it in, he is going to have a tiny bit of a time save over Wulfy on that one. As when you use that final bomb, it's going to move him over to Fire Rock, so he doesn't have to switch or walk over to that switch to knock down the pegs again.
Yeah, and very smooth. You saw Wulfy go for the fake powder there. And now he is fully primed for the damage boost strat.
Yep, Vitreous himself does 4 damage, but if you walk into the slime, it only does 1 heart of damage, so... And iframes last a decent amount of time. Let's just do nothing but spins.
Yeah, definitely. And he did take 6 hearts of damage, so he would have survived the fight, but sometimes just having the peace of mind is good.
Yeah, there are several instances where you think you got into the slime, except that an eyeball flying decides to hit you first, and that's probably the most disheartening way to die.
Yeah, for the most part, RNG is favorable, but you want to do exaggerated motions in order to, be able to facilitate in the event that the RNG does happen to do that. And sometimes when you do a lot of runs and you don't get that RNG, your movement can be a little bit complacent and you don't do the proper motion. And then all of a sudden, eyeball hits you and, well...
Very clean dungeon from Lanxion. Cabbage is not playing very nice with Wulfy today, neither of those squirrels.
Oh, that's a fun strat from Wulfy. But for the die rock solidifies, you can hit it multiple times, so, the movement there, just making sure that he didn't have the dead rock in the way whatsoever. Yeah, both players heading up to Turtle Rock. Turtle Rock, another pretty scary dungeon. There's some enemies that do some very, big amounts of damage, and even some unique enemy types too.
Yep, and it's gonna be extra scary for Lanxion. He's seen that fairy drop and then 1 extra drop since then, so he's not gonna see a fairy drop during Turtle Rock. The big idea between the prize pack manipulation that starts way back in Aghanim's Hour is we want to get a fairy drop. The next guaranteed enemy in the pack is in this dungeon, and we've got quite a few opportunities to try to get that.
Yeah, there are some scary chain chomps, and we want to take out the Hokuboku in order to get that fairy drop.
Alright, 44 enter for Wulfy.
But yeah, another big dungeon with lots of sources of damage.
Yep. Wouldn't be surprised if Lanxion decides to take it safe in this room that Wulfy's in right now. There's a lot of intended damage boost strategy to go optimally, and then a lot of it relies on you being able to somehow get a fairy. Wulfy has that possibility still. I wonder if Lanxion still has that in the back of his mind, if he's going to adjust according to that.
Yeah, it's pretty well expected that you take 1 heart from the fall there, and then you take 3 from the roller. But after this point, you want to avoid all damage if you can. This Chain Chomp room has some very unfavorable RNG patterns at times, but if it goes well like it did for Wulfy, you're able to get through. This room is probably the scariest room in Turtle Rock, admittedly, just because of those Chain Chomps. They may look cute, but their damage is pretty cute too. But yeah, where Lanxion is, if you're afraid of damage, you can mirror in order to get back to the beginning and go through that way. It's a little bit slower, but it is another option.
Definitely don't blame him for taking it safer right there, since he knows he doesn't have that fairy drop.
Yeah, exactly. 4 RNG patterns in the room that Wulfy was just in, but they're all fairly comparable to one another, so he definitely gets through it very well. Yeah, ooh, and unfortunately Lanxion having some issues with the chomp here. Again, this room, very scary, very volatile. As long as he's very careful from here on out, he will be fine, but it's still not a fun position to be in. Yeah, and I think Lanxion actually got the exact same pattern as Wulfy.
They're both pretty decent patterns. The one that you have to be a little bit more careful with is that bottom left one. You just have to kind of time it to make sure you don't get bunny beam too early.
Yeah, that bottom left one is probably the most difficult one. Just in terms of trying to optimize it and make it go quickly. Yeah, and Wulfy taking a little bit of an early refill here. And he will be heading to the laser bridge. Lasers aren't as scary as they look. They are your friend. Only the front part hurts you. The real threat is this beetle here. But the beetle went bye-bye, so all is good.
All is good. Yep, yeah. So only front part damages you, and then as long as you sneak in through the top and nudge through that, by that block, there's like perfectly safe.
Yeah. Lanxion gets through the double Hokuboku or Pokey room. Took another hit, which isn't good. He might opt to take a safety door. He does have the bomb to facilitate that. But 16 RNG patterns in that room, so in terms of optimization, it can be a little bit trickier, but...
Well, if you go for that backdoor strap... Just barely misses that 0 cycle, no big deal.
Yeah. Very good fight from Wulfy so far. And yeah, Lanxion pulling out the hookshot. When you extend the hookshot, you're invulnerable. So he wants to hold on to as many hearts as he can. Unfortunately, yeah, he had to change direction. He takes a hit. But he does go for the refill here, which is very smart. Yeah, and again, he does not have the powder, but he can get the safety door. But
yeah, but then right now he's still one hit away from dying.
Yeah, his health is not good, but a big thing is that you don't want to die, especially without having magic and warping back to the beginning. But it looks like he's going to not go for it, which makes a lot of sense. This is a tournament run. He's behind at the moment. It would be nice. He does get a nice heart. It would be nice to get a safety door, but he still can't really afford time. And with an opponent as respectable as Wulfy, you know, he can't afford to wait.
Yep, and then Lanxion is in this mindset right now. It's like, I mean, he does have some time he has to catch up on, time to make up. So he's taking the riskiest things he can do. Another thing about taking safeties you normally don't do during a run, at least in my experience, trying to go take something really safe causes more damage than just going with what you're used to with your hands.
Yeah, exactly. There is something within a person where you're trying to achieve equilibrium, and when you do something that is unorthodox to how you normally operate, it can definitely throw you out of sync. And of course, Lanxion originally opted to not go for the safety. So there's a confidence there. And then of course, there's also a respect and understanding here. He needs to try and make up time. He needs to be very careful. Oh my goodness, that spike. But very good from him. He is now through. So he saved a lot of time from not going to that safety door. And now we find Wulfy in the climatic ending of Ganon Tower. Definitely a fun execution gauntlet, but still also a punishing one. Lots of little speed tech here that you can do.
Yep, and we have all of Lightworld stuck within a building. Just have to venture deep into the basement so we can get the big key so we can climb up the tower.
Yeah, and of course, you know, what end part of the game isn't complete without having boss refights. So very shortly here, Wulfy will have to refight the Armos. But Armos would be too simple, so the developers lovingly decide to add ice.
Yep, no game is complete without ice physics. And since they knew we were going to skip most of the ice dungeon, they decided to toss some more in here.
Yeah, interesting thing about this fight is that there's a variable within the game. I'm probably going to butcher it a little bit, but it has to do with circular movement within the game. And that counter, that variable, has kind of has its parameters set within this fight. So if you take too long in the fight, it'll actually affect the fire bats in the Ganon fight later. But Wulfy gets through, so the RNG in the Ganon fight will be a little bit more static now.
Yes, like I believe the last time that same variable is used within this run, before that is Argus. So there's just few things that use that arc variable. So as long as you do have that Armos fight pretty clean, you'll be able to react to Ganon Bass pretty easily. It's just going to be dependent on where they're starting from that you have to react to.
Yep.
And then he'll need to make sure he grabs those arrows after the big key. He might grab some extra in case something goes wrong on Armor Tomb.
Yeah. Just want to say, there are some amazing resources for this game. So if you want to learn, you know, about more things like the arc variable, I know Super Sketch released a very, you know, in-depth video regarding it, and it's actually quite fascinating, so I highly recommend it. But, you know, just so much love and care went into the speedrun and everything going into it. So, you know, definitely, there's only so much we can share during the commentary, and there's so much more. Yeah, Wulfy making his way through his colloquially referred to as the Gauntlet. Currently in room 4 of 5, and now in room 5. The game kind of throws, you know, more and more increasingly difficult rooms at you. You know, it kind of has skeletons, and then it has spikes, and then, you know, conveyors, spikes, and then conveyors, spikes, and ice. And it's almost like, oh my goodness, what, you know, how could it get any worse? And then they add more ice.
Yep, and then hard mode of lame mode, What they decided they want to add some fireballs to the fight. No big deal.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's, how can we make this room, you know, even more ice and lasers? You know, basically just a Canadian rave show. But yeah, Wulfy making his way through, almost at the end.
Thanks, I'm definitely being conscious with this health. He's trying to avoid having to visit the fairy room later on.
Yeah, definitely. There is a safety room, but it does eat up time. There are tons of backups in this game, but the main thing is that they eat up time.
But they definitely eat up a lot less time than dying, especially in this dungeon.
Absolutely. I can kind of feel like grading nails on a chalkboard, doing, you know, different strategies that might seem slower, but it's always better than dying or taking damage unnecessarily. And yeah, he has a good health count, so of course he does not go for it. Wulfy heading into the Mold Room 2 fight here. Ironically, it's actually simpler than the first fight. You'd think that the smaller area would make it more difficult, but it kind of makes Moldrum's movement easier to track, and you do more damage too.
And especially with no center hole to fall into. And he's going to be entering Ganon with really good health.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is very much ideal. Yeah, and Aga 2, kind of a revisit from Aga 1. In some ways more annoying, in some ways less annoying, but always annoying.
A little less sensitive to a lot less sensitive to the blue balls. As long as you can line things up properly, you'll be able to get 3 or 4 cycles pretty easily. But sometimes the positions don't work out really well.
Yeah, I'd say 3 is about ideal. It's kind of all you can really hope for. 2 is the best you can get because you need to reflect 6 orbs, but the RNG of Aghanim doesn't always facilitate for that. So 3 is kind of what you're shooting for.
Yep, so Wulfy's getting ready to hop into Tempered Ganon fight. Each phase he needs equivalent of 12 Tempered Slashes for the first 2. There's some particular steps to make sure you get each slash done in time, or all the damage done in time. And he has until Ganon starts swinging his trident again to make sure you get that damage in. And then same thing with phase 2.
Yep, and this is where kind of understanding how the fire bats work is really, you know, kindly applicable.
Yep, clean one-on-one. This is the phase where RNG actually matters in this fight. Ganon, every time he warps in here, he can either be vulnerable to a hit or he can just warp away.
Yeah, about a 50-50% chance in order to hit Ganon, so, you know, a lot of time can get eaten up here too. And Wulfy is going to go for the, you know, fake torch glitch. If you light that if you light that torch before the other torch goes away, you will activate a glitch where the right torch will never go out. And so magic management is really important in this fight. And so getting that glitch makes it much better in terms of that.
And then not only that, it also makes it a lot easier so you can land 3 spins every time that left torch goes out. The game expects you to have silver arrows, but if you hit Ganon like right before he teleports away, you'll be able to do damage. 12 spins takes care of him. And GG to Wulfy.
Yeah, GG to Wulfy.
Just in time for Lanxion to hop on over to Ganon.
Yeah, he will finish in first place. Yeah, you can sometimes get a glitch at the very end there, and if you're not looking, you can fall over. But he will finish in first place at a time of 1 hour, 23 minutes, and 5 seconds. Very strong race from him. We'll see if we can get him in for an interview shortly. But yeah, just kind of going as Lanxion's about to head into his fight here. The charge spin has a lot of active frames. The hitbox of the charge slash is actually pretty close to a giant square, and it has many active frames. So while Ganon is about to teleport, there's about a 1 to 2 frame window in which you can actually damage Ganon. And so doing the charge spin just guarantees that you'll hit that window much more frequently.
Yep, and then what I find to be the most consistent way to hit that window every time is you don't slash your sword until you start seeing Ganon hit that spot after he teleports. Nice one-on-one from Lanxion. Ganon was not playing very nice either.
No, Ganon being a little bit rude, but still very shortly behind. Still incredibly close race, which I think we all knew going into it, but wow.
It was a
Very
really
good by
tight
both
race.
players.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, the important thing here is to get that torch glitch.
Still doable. It's actually still possible to get 3 hits per cycle, but it's incredibly tight.
Yeah, unfortunately. You'll have to kind of switch to the lantern in order to save for the magic. I actually looked away and I thought he got the torch glitch, but it's unfortunate that he didn't.
Yeah, the Fire Rod has some funky mechanics sometimes. He just kind of shot over the torch when it happened from how close he was.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be difficult to set this up. Ooh.
Wow.
Played with my heart there. Yeah, he's trying to set up so that he can get the extra spin by delaying and waiting for Ganon to teleport, but it's just not going in his favor currently.
Yeah, there's multiple ideologies as far as when's the best time to light the torches whenever you don't get torch glitch.
Yeah, and Lanxion takes down Ganon, so GG's to him.
Yeah, very nice race from both runners. Both deathless, as far as I can remember.
Yeah, it's really good, really brave too.
Yes, I mean, some of the big things was definitely the Aghanim RNG, and then I forgot what dungeon he started to fall apart a little bit for Lanxion, but he just managed to pull it through.
Yeah, it almost seemed like after the Aghanim thing, that's where it kind of got to him in a sense. The lead did shift at that point, so maybe there was a mental aspect at play, but he will finish in second place with a time of 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 26 seconds. So we'll see if we can get them both in here for an interview.
And we've got Wulfy here with us right now. GG.
GG.
Hey, thanks.
What are your thoughts?
Well, not the greatest run, but some neat things happened. It's 129 with like 6 blue balls and isn't so bad.
Yeah, you both got a ton of blue balls. And welcome, Lanxion. GG's.
Thank you. GG Wulfy. That was really good.
Yeah, good race.
Yeah, for sure. I saw that. I think you golded pod, I think.
Gold pod and gold Cannon's Tower.
Oh jeez, how do I
Nice.
how do I compete with something like that? Come on, man.
But the thing I'm most proud about from that run is Waffle House drive-through.
Oh
Yeah, we were commenting on that really briefly.
Well, now I'm sad I raced it and I didn't get to watch it. Waffle House is fantastic.
There's always
Speaking
going
of
to be the
watching, though,
highlights.
That's for true. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
speaking of watching, though, we were watching that Aghanim fight. The Aga 1 fight.
Yeah,
We
well,
lost count.
I had 9. I can't imagine Wulfy he must have had 5 or 6, or at least.
Yeah, it
So-
was like
he had
6, I
6.
think.
Yeah, because I was going in there, I was not much farther ahead. And then, because I had a pretty good light world, I golded my desert, and then I looked and he ruined neck and neck, and then he golded pod and kind of took off from there. I had a very, very rocky Thieves Town. Very rocky Thieves Town.
Made it out alive.
Yeah,
That hell I did not want you to go through.
no, especially with half a heart or whatever I had at the moment, it was going to be pretty dicey.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
still kind of going over fatigue. I recently dropped powder, and so you can kind of tell I'm a little more hesitant in the back half of my run. I did Gold Swamp. I did Golden Skull Woods, which is pretty good, even though it wasn't that great. And then the rest of the run was okay. So this run was better than my PB outside of the missing the torch glitch, but I got 9 blue balls or whatever it was. So
Yeah,
Pretty
it's pretty incredible because he did enter that fight ahead, and then yeah, and then Wulfy pulled out a little bit ahead, and so it was kind of you two kind of came out pretty even during the fight, but you were a good 10 some seconds ahead.
and I think just from,
33 blue balls worth, right?
yeah, I think just from our splits, I think that Wulfy has a much better Dark World than I do. So I think it was like natural because I don't think I did anything terribly wrong or he did either, but he kind of just, from what I was watching, every time I looked at our splits, he was just like 5 or 6 seconds better on this split, and then 5 or 6 seconds better on that split, and he kind of just like closed, like really made a gap, which is fine. It was a really good run to Wulfy.
Yeah, Dark World went pretty well overall.
Mhm.
Just some time loss on Meyer because I kept getting hit.
Yeah, it's definitely a testament to being a player for a longer time. There's that conditioning and kind of that comfort that just comes with all the experience.
For sure, like I got pretty lucky in my group stages where my opponent was much better than me, but happened to be pretty rusty. Wulfy did not seem to be that rusty, and and pretty much cruised. So it was, I knew it was going to be very, very difficult. And I would need PB pretty big to beat him, but pretty close. I think I did. Overall, I'm okay with my run. Some knickknacks there, but really, really good job, Wulfy. Good luck in your next round.
Yep, thank you.
It's certainly a wonderful race to watch. We knew two would be pretty close going in, and it was pretty close all the way through.
No deaths for everyone, I think.
Yep,
No what?
No deaths.
Yeah, no,
that is
absolutely.
nice. So, are you going to be pushing that sub 130 after the tournament, or are you going to move on to other projects?
My goal is to get sub 130. I think it's definitely attainable, and a couple of us have been kind of pushing it since we started 6 months ago, or roughly before then. So, me and Masaru and Willa G. Bradley have been battling back and forth. So once I get sub 130, I might move on to a different game, but sub 130 is the goal for the minute. So.
Or possibly another category into dungeons?
I'm learning that all dungeons category as well, but that's for the back burner for sure.
Nice. Well, based on what I was saying, yeah, that 130 is definitely just a matter of time. It'll definitely happen.
Well, thank you. All right, well, and thank you very much for commentating and for Speed Gaming for having us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you for letting us commentate.
All right, well, y'all have a good night. Thank you very much.
Have a good one.
Alright, Wulfy, looking forward. Looks like you've got Link Orange coming up. How you feeling about that?
That'll be a tough race. I think his PB is better than mine by about a minute and a half.
Okay.
But I'll do my best.
Considering dropping any safeties or anything to practice for it?
I might not grab the mushroom. That's like normally I get no safeties in my PB attempts. I've just been grabbing the mushroom for tournament, so maybe I won't do that. We'll see.
Yeah, it's a small time loss, but just the benefit and even comfort it can provide is pretty huge. But I mean, against a strong opponent, it's almost like any corner you can cut, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, again, thank you very much for the race. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, thanks for commentary, and I'll head out now. See you next week.
All right.
Have a good one.
All right, coming up on Speed Gaping. We have Keong92 versus Zyrak, and that's coming up here in just a few minutes.
Yeah, it'll be very exciting.
So make sure you stick around for that, give the runners a follow, and have a great night.
Have a good one. Bye.